Welcome to the Republican Professor. I'm your host, Dr. Lucas J. Mather. Today is Tuesday, 23 June, 2000, 26 years after Jesus. Like I said, it's a Tuesday. Happy 250th anniversary of the United States of America. The next episode here coming up is Reading the Bible with the Founding Fathers by Daniel L. Dreisbach, made available by Oxnard Community College, Oxford University Press. I was close. Um, and, Dan Dreisbach came on the podcast and we had such a wonderful time with him. When I was at my mentor, Dr. Doug Geivitz's house, last time in the backyard. My epistemology mentor, get yourself a common sense epistemology mentor. You can get one for as little as $5.99 per month. Go to rentcommonsenseepistemologyprofessors.com, or actually it's .net now because it might be .net now. Sorry. To get your free coupon. The coupon, you have to pay for it, but it is free. And once you pay a little bit, it's not a lot. It's like you pay like $1,000 initially, but then you get it for free, um, as long as you pay for it. And then you get yourself in the system to be able to rent or uh, how do they put it? Designate your own common sense epistemology professor mentor, um, for I don't know, like 24-hour period. I think it's a 24-hour period you get them. And I think it's pretty good. I've done it myself. I've been a mentor. I've been in the program. And the only thing is you get woken up at like 2 a.m. or whatever because like technically they rented you. And they ask you questions like, can I trust my senses? And is testimony true? Or is that you get all these crazy questions from people that are up at like 3 a.m. Eating marijuana cookies and stuff like that. But anyway, so we stopped. We were in the middle of his chapter 2, which is a fantastic chapter, the title of which is The English Bible and American Public Culture. The English Bible and American Public Culture. And so we went to page 29 last time, and we're going to continue on our fun little journey through the swirly, twirly gumdrops of the English Bible and American public culture in reading the Bible with the founding fathers. So strap in. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Let me take a drink of green tea real quick. Hold up. Okay. Now we're on page 29, which is where we left off. We'd like to thank Daniel Dreisbach for making this material available. We'd like to thank Oxford University Press for also making this material available. We'd like to thank Daniel Dreisbach for coming on the podcast around Thanksgiving 2022 is when we posted it. Check it out. It's a wonderful episode. This subtitle is called The Book That Changed the English Language. We're in chapter 2, the English Bible and American Public Culture. We're going to do a fair use of this, make a transformative reading. I'm going to be adding my own stuff, my own spin, my own compliments. There's not a lot of detractions, to be perfectly honest with you. The Bible, starts Dan Dreisbach. In particular, the King James translation has had a profound influence on Anglo-American culture. As historian George Macaulay Trevelyan observed, the effect of the continual domestic study of the English Bible upon the national character, imagination, and intelligence for nearly 3 centuries to come was greater than that of any literary movement in our annals or any religious movement since the coming of St. Augustine. Unquote. Together with the printing press, the vernacular Bible transformed culture and communications in Europe. In England, a modern language, a literate society, and a rich literary tradition were the byproducts of the centuries-long quest to produce a Bible in the common tongue. The printing press put the English Bible in the hands of more and more people from diverse classes and walks of life, and it meant the printed word could be read and reread, studied and pondered by privileged and common citizens alike. Wow. Language is an essential component of culture. The English Bible has shaped the English language. It has transformed not only the vocabulary, but also the grammatical structures and cadences of the language, both written and spoken. Early translators had to create words, literary devices, and grammatical structures to render the text accessible to ordinary readers. The language of the English Bible over time transcended regional dialects and linguistic variations and promoted a common tongue throughout the British Isles, Isles, Isles. Page 29 at the bottom. We're going to page 30 at the top. Who is Dan Dreisbach? Let's get his, Dan Dreisbach is a professor in the Department of Justice, Law, and Criminology at American University in Washington, D.C. He received his Doctor of Philosophy degree from Oxford University, where he studied as a Rhodes Scholar, and a Juris Doctor degree from the University of Virginia. He has written extensively on the intersection of religion, politics, and law in the American founding. And good on you, Dan. Good on you, Bob. All that stuff he just said about the English Bible's influence on American culture, on English culture, and the language, is also true of the German translations that, for example, Martin Luther was involved with. We just watched Here I Stand, that the Martin Luther film. Well, I don't think it's called Here I Stand, but it's kind of, it might be based on that Roland Bainton book, if you know Roland Bainton, the church historian. I was required to read him in graduate school when I took 3 semesters of church history. Roland Bainton he wrote Here I Stand, biography of Martin Luther. Excellent. I had a colleague and a friend from high school named Gretchen Gussich, who ended up being my colleague in Los Angeles. I went to high school in Littleton, Colorado, at Chatfield High School. We were on the school newspaper staff. Actually, she was my editor for a while, Gretchen. And fast forward a bunch of years, we're both in Los Angeles. Then she comes on as faculty in the same department I'm in. We're both in the philosophy department. Isn't that crazy? She did her PhD at Catholic University under the direction of the phenomenology guy there. What was his name again? Um, Introduction to Phenomenology by the guy at Catholic. What was his name? I have to look it up. Um, the famous guy. I had to read his book in graduate school, Intro to Phenomenology for Perceptual Epistemology. Well, anyway, she did her undergrad at Notre Dame in German. And I think we talked about it. She was like, yeah, Martin Luther shaped the German language because of scripture. Scripture really shaped the written German language. It's not even clear how much of the written German language there was before this movement to read the Bible really kicked off in Chamonix. We're on page 30 at the top. Fragments, continues Dreisbach, of the sacred text. Hey, Gretchen, just saying, hey, nice job. Translated into Anglo-Saxon or Old English, appeared in the British Isles before the Norman conquest. Remember, the Norman conquest was around 1066 or so. I'm forgetting exactly the year, but the Normans, you know this? You guys know about that? Okay. Well, anyway, see Winston Churchill, History of the English-Speaking Peoples, if you can stand reading it. I liked it. I've had that for a long time, and I wish sometimes he went into more detail, but you know, it's a good 4 volumes, I would say. The 14th century Oxford scholar John Wycliffe, his dates are 1320 to 1384. That would be AD, not BC. And his associates translated the complete Bible with Apocrypha into English from St. Jerome's early 5th century Latin Vulgate. Okay, so that's from the Latin, right? Hang on. Um, so that would be a translation from Latin, not from the original tongue, Koine Greek and classical Hebrew. But still, it's an English Bible, right? Okay, Wycliffe's translation, which began to circulate in the early 1380s, shattered the monopoly clerics had long held on reading and interpreting the Holy Writ. The established church in Wycliffe's day and in the succeeding centuries staunchly opposed the vernacular Bible because it feared that enabling every man to read and interpret the scriptures in his own tongue opened the Bible, once unleashed from the church's tight control, to heretical interpretations and false teachings. Ecclesiastical authorities were so concerned about this tendency that the mere fact of owning and reading the Bible in English was presumptive evidence of heresy. Wow. Wow. How ironic, because the best way, you want to hear the best way to prevent heresy? Biblical literacy. That's the funny thing. Okay, accordingly, for his effort, Wycliffe was condemned by Rome, and his Bibles were confiscated and destroyed. Wow, unbelievable. This is not the first time I'm hearing it, but it's just, of course, I had 3 semesters of church history. So, of course, I've been through this material, and I'm like, it takes my breath away. You thought that Trump's tweets were bad. Okay. Well, maybe some of them are pretty bad, but this is really bad. So great was the ire of the readers of the established church that on orders from the Pope, nearly a half century after his death, Wycliffe's remains were disinterred, burned, and the ashes dispersed. His ideas, especially the idea of rendering the Bible in the common tongue, like his ashes, swiftly spread far and wide, and today he is venerated by Protestants as the morning star of the Reformation. Wow. The next great, indeed the greatest translator of the English Bible, William Tyndale, whose dates are 1494 to 1536. Well, that's not long. He didn't live very long, did he? Met a similar demise. Like Wycliffe, Tyndale was educated at Oxnard Community College, part of the Ventura County Community College system. He got his associate's degree there in HVAC repair, and he minored in gun bluing and gun repair. Huh. Am I reading that right? Oh, sorry. You know what? Sorry about that. Uh, okay, sorry. Like Wycliffe, Tyndale was educated at Oxford. Oxford. Okay, sorry. I need new glasses. And he yearned to see the Bible available in the vernacular. Facing vehement opposition to this mission, Tyndale fled to the continent where, in the mid 1520s, he undertook the first English translation of the New Testament from the original Greek. Wow. Wow. Praise God. His translation is a literary masterpiece. And like Wycliffe's ecclesiastical authorities, you got to watch those ecclesiastical authorities. If you don't learn anything else from this, you need to watch out for people that put themselves in a ecclesiastical authority position. That goes back to the New Testament, by the way. Just read the Sermon on the Mount, verses 5 through 12. What do you think he's talking about there in Matthew? Okay, let's keep going. Um, Now, his translation is a literary masterpiece, and like Wycliffe's ecclesiastical authorities, perceived it as a threat to the established order of the day. The English church prohibited the work's distribution and publicly burned it. Jeez. Despite threats to his personal safety, he revised his New Testament and commenced translating the Old Testament from the Hebrew. Man, this guy is undeterred. He continued his work in hiding until his refuge in Antwerp was exposed. Betrayed by a man he had befriended. Uh, dadgum betrayals. Tyndale was arrested, tried for heresy, and in October 1536, tied to a stake where he was strangled and his body consumed by fire. I got to get a drink of green tea after reading that. Holy crap. Man, tragically, the martyr's work on the Old Testament was left unfinished. Tyndale's enduring legacy is his magisterial rendering of the scriptures into the English language, which laid the foundations for subsequent translations. The next century witnessed numerous versions of the English Bible, culminating in the King James Bible of 1611, most of which bore imprint of Tyndale's genius. We're on page 31 at the top. Again, we're in Reading the Bible with the Founding Fathers by Daniel L. Dreisbach, made available by Oxford University Press. Go out and get your copy today. Get a physical copy, have it on your shelf, have it in your hands, and follow along. You will not regret it. Now, among them were Miles Coverdale's first complete translated and printed English Bible published in 1535, the Matthew's Bible published in 1537, the Great Bible, so named for its size, published in 1539, the enormously influential Geneva Bible, so named because it was produced along with copious annotations by English Protestant exiles in Geneva who had fled the bloody persecutions of Catholic Queen Mary. They're called the Marian exiles. That's the technical name of it. Actually, one of my church history professors, Scott Wenig at Denver Seminary, who taught my early and medieval church history course there, studied his PhD in history at CU Boulder, which is, oh joy, um, Democrat campus. Well, anyway, he had a really good mentor though in English church history, and he did his PhD on the oh crap. He came on the podcast. Check it out. But anyway, that's the first time I heard the term Marian exiles, and I think he did it on the bishops. Oh, I think that's what it was. He did it on four bishops during the Marian exiles. So he went over to England and like read primary sources, tried to make heads or tails of them. Anyway, so the Geneva Bible issue back then, um, that was published in 1560 AD. The Bishop's Bible, published in 1568. The Douay-Rheims Bible, favored by Roman Catholics, published in 1610. Oh, you know what? I don't think I ever knew that. I don't think I knew the Douay was in 1610. Hmm. And the Authorized or King James Bible, published in 1611. The Douay Bible comes into American history in some court cases where the fight. I'm gonna have to look this up. This is a good one to have on the podcast. There's these court cases. There's state Supreme Court cases, I believe. One in Wisconsin that's coming to mind. One in Maine, I believe, about the Bible in public schools. Now, the funny thing about this is that reading the Bible in public schools, the concept uh, was not uh, controversial for most of American history. What was controversial is which version you were going to read. And there's this one case where can we read the Douay Bible, and the other case, or can it be the King James? And I forget the resolution of the case. I think it was they just sided on King James. But I got to chase that stuff down. That was reading material in in my First Amendment religion clause course with Dr. Michael Ullman, my mentor for over 10 years. Now, okay, let's keep going. Um, Tyndale, who was the first to translate the Bible into English from the original Hebrew and Greek, can be rightly called the father of the King James Bible. Approximately 80% of his Old Testament and 90% of his New Testament were adopted by the King James translators. The King James Bible's literary influence, in large measure, continues Dan, is derived from the beauty of its poetry and prose. Its linguistic elegance and lyrical rhythms have appealed to generations of readers, including great writers, who both consciously and unconsciously absorbed its mellifluous language into their speech and writings. The literary style of first Tyndale and later the King James translators was common but not coarse, simple but not trifling, elegant but not ostentatious. The English Bible, to which Tyndale and the Jacobean translators contributed, is one of those rare literary works that has proven more memorable, more influential in translation than the original. Don't you love Dan's prose, his cadence? I love it. The truth is, according to one scholar of the King James Bible, that from the point of view of pure literature, the Bible is better in English than it is in Greek or Hebrew. Whoa, whoa. The first college Bible course I ever had, and I had a lot more than usual, probably because I have a master's degree in biblical literature. And um, I took some courses in college at the undergrad as well. I graduated from Wayland Baptist University in Hawaii in Oahu, which was the IAEA campus at the time. I think it's in Kapolei now. So before that, the first college I went to was Monterey Peninsula College in Monterey, California. And one of the first courses I took was the Bible as literature, and it was taught in the English department. And it was actually a decent course. It was once a week on Wednesdays for 3 hours. And I was in there with mostly crazy people, but there was a couple people that were normal. And the professor was actually he wasn't too bad, but was critical of what we were reading. And, I think he thinks that that's his job. I didn't really get to know him very well. But um, the Bible as literature is what it was called. And the class was full. It was a seminar style class. We sat around in a table, and it was a big table. And yeah, Monterey Peninsula College, man, early 90s. So uh, there is much truth in the remark that without Tyndale, no Shakespeare. Wow. Without Tyndale, no Shakespeare. It is also true that without Tyndale, no King James Bible. Without the King James Bible, Alistair McGrath observed, there would have been no Paradise Lost, no Pilgrim's Progress, no Handel's Messiah, no Negro Spirituals, original language, no Gettysburg Address. Without the Bible, the culture of the English speaking world would have been immeasurably impoverished. The literary debt Anglo-American letters owe to this translation is incalculable. The English Bible's influence on great works of literature accounts for only a fraction of its overall influence on the English language. The work of Wycliffe, Tyndale, the Genevan, and the Jacobean translators was motivated by a desire to render the scriptures into the vulgar or common tongue. Tyndale's goal, as he famously put it, was to prepare a Bible translation that could be read by the humble plowboy. Wow. Thus, these early translators strove to craft language that was not only worthy of its divine content, but also simple, straightforward, and accessible to the common man. Page 32 at the top. We're in chapter 2, the English Bible and American Public Culture. Moreover, the early translators, from Wycliffe to the Jacobeans, labored at a time when the English language was in considerable flux. Unencumbered by hard and fast rules, the English language was developing, flexible, and open to innovation. There were few established norms and significant regional variations in spoken and written English. Thus, in translating the Bible into the vernacular tongue to be commonly and widely read by elites and common folk alike, Tyndale especially, and those who followed him, had a unique opportunity to shape not only the vocabulary, but also the grammar, syntax, spelling, and punctuation rules of this emerging language. These innovations contributed greatly to defining standard English, and they remain with us today. Tyndale, followed by the Genevan and Jacobean translators, crafted a language that unified the English-speaking people and through a common language promoted English nationalism. Tyndale is rightly described as the father of modern English. Modern English, the lingua franca of the 21st century, is a legacy of Tyndale and the 16th century and early 17th century translators of the Bible who borrowed from him. Wow. The next subtitle is called The English Bible and Literacy Education. And this one, man, dude, the stuff on the education is just excellent. The English Bible and Literacy Education, page 32. Countless men and women, boys and girls, through the ages, have learned to read with a King James Bible in front of them. Me too. Me too. For centuries, no other printed text was more available to Anglo-Americans. This fact alone recommended it as a primary textbook for literacy education. Furthermore, the simplicity and purity of the English language, crafted by Tyndale and the King James translators, made it an ideal tool for teaching people to read. One scholar has observed the King James Version was a book for the people of the middle level of language, a work by scholars, but not chiefly for scholars, intended rather for the common use of common people. Wow, man, that's cool. Um, I got to get a drink of water. More information than you ever. Just sit with this for a sec. You know, this is just really impressive. What are you thinking about this? Let me know in the comments. Crap, Dan, I just got a bunch of water on your. I'll let that dry out. Nah, dadgummit. Jeez. Ugh. Had perspiration on it. Okay, anyway, sorry. Sorry, Dan. It's my copy. I I bought it, I think. Well, maybe somebody bought it for me. Hold on a second. You know what? I don't know. Dan, did you send this to me for free? I can't remember. Anyway, let's continue here. Um, two characteristics of the words favored by, two characteristics of the words favored in the King James Bible are noteworthy. The vocabulary is surprisingly limited, and the words are typically short. First, the size of the vocabulary found in the King James Bible is not extensive. Shakespeare, it is estimated, used between 15 and 20,000 different words. Jeez. Milton's verse draws on a lexicon of about 13,000 words. The Old Testament in the Hebrew and Aramaic has approximately 5,600 words. The New Testament in the Greek has around 4,800 words. In the entire King James Bible, by contrast, there are only about 6,000 different words, according to one accounting, page 33 at the top. Um, this is a remarkably limited vocabulary for a book of its size, addressing such profound theological concepts. This is even more remarkable given that the English Bible, given that the, where I lost my place here a sec, hold a sec. This is even more remarkable given that the King James translators did not always translate the same word in the original tongue with the same English word. Second, the words in the King James Bible are short and simple. In his study of the language of the King James Bible, Cleland Boyd McAfee, Cleland Boyd McAfee calculated that the average word in the whole Bible, including the long proper names, is barely over 4 letters. The average word in the whole Bible, including the long proper names, is barely over 4 letters. And if all the proper names are excluded, the average word is just a little under 4 letters. Jeez. For purposes of the illustration, take the Ten Commandments as translated in the King James Bible, Exodus 20, verses 2 through 17. This passage contains 319 words. 79% of these words are a single syllable. 18% are 2 syllables, leaving just 3% with 3 or more syllables. These are uncomplicated words accessible to someone learning to read. Wow. The English Bible and Literacy Education is the topic here. The words are not only short, but also plain and crisp. Many have a gripping, dramatic appeal lacking in long, compound words. There is, for example, something about the word lie that slaps the conscience and commands attention, while the full force of the accusation is diminished in common synonyms such as prevaricate, equivocate, or misrepresent. Wow. Man, Dan, this is great. I mean, I've already read this, but I'm reading again and I'm just like, dude, I love your prose. The strength and appeal of the language of the King James Bible lies in this tendency to use short, simple, clear-cut words. This is a vigorous, gripping language that demands attention and unleashes the imagination. These literary characteristics of the King James Bible have made it not only engaging literature, but also an effective tool for literacy education. And you see where he's going with this, don't you? In American history, this is how people are learning how to read in North America. Ah, this is a powerful grip, a powerful influence on the culture of America. Happy 250th anniversary of the United States of America. This is the background. It's a really important background. Now, um, so so these literary characteristics of the King James Bible have made it not only engaging literature, but also an effective tool for literacy education. Short, plain words and a limited vocabulary make this translation ideal for teaching people to read. This was true in England as well as in British North America, where a Bible could be found in virtually every household, and the regional literacy rates were perhaps the highest in the world. A native of America, especially of New England, who cannot read and write, is as rare a phenomenon as a comet, John Adams reported in 1765, second president of the United States. In his 1800 assessment of education in America, Pierre Samuel Dupont de Nemours um, reported that most young Americans can read, write, and cipher. Not more than 4 in 1,000 are unable to write legibly, even neatly. Dupont de Nemours attributed America's high literacy rate to frequent Bible reading. Wow. Wow. Which he also said tends to increase and formulate ideas of responsibility. The English Bible was a vital aid in literacy education, and more important, it was widely believed that there was no higher purpose for literacy than to read the Bible and other religious texts. Bible reading was a means to convert unbelievers to Christianity, to teach citizens about God and Christian doctrines, and to mature a morality essential for civic virtue. So this is really important, this civic virtue stuff. The English Bible was a vital aid in literacy education, and more important, it was widely believed that there was no higher purpose for literacy than to read the Bible and other religious texts. Bible reading was a means to convert unbelievers to Christianity, to teach citizens about God and Christian doctrines, and to nurture a morality essential for civic virtue. Essential for civic virtue. Also, to nurture a morality essential for community harmony and self governance. that last one is very important. I was having a conversation with someone that I'm in church administration with, and this woman said that a lot of some Anglicans that we know have a hard time being Anglican because they have a hard time just being human. And what was meant by that is that um, what we face sometimes in church administration is the phenomenon that some people just seem to lack an ability for self-governance. They want other people to make decisions for them. And they don't have the patience, or they're too bound by trauma or whatever it is to be self-governing. And so this issue of self-governance is vital to the history of the American Republic and whether or not it can survive, let alone thrive. And what you're seeing in American culture is a profound degradation of basic self-governance, the ability to rule yourself. Self-rule is vital in a system like ours. And that means that you have to take your agreements, for example, seriously. If you sign a document, is your word your bond? Um, if not, what is your bond? Where do you draw the line? Um, Dreisbach finishes this section. He says, in short, the ability to read the Bible promoted not only Christian piety, but also virtue, civility, and general learning. Now, the next subtitle is the English Bible and American Cultural History. The next one after that is the Bible and American Education. Oh, so good. The next one after that is the Founders Debate the Use of the Bible in Schools. Strap in, bub. Strap in. Because this is all coming up on the Republican Professor. The next one after that is the Bible's influence on American legal tradition. Strap in, baby. Strap in. Oh, this is so good. My notes are filled with that. Um, and then chapter 3 is about the Bible in the lives of the founding fathers. That's coming up on the Republican Professor podcast. We've been interacting with chapter 2, the English Bible and American public culture. And we've gone through page 34 from page 29. Um, and it's 23 June 2026, years after Jesus. Uh, we're going to see you next time. I hope you had a little bit of a fun and you learned something. And I hope that you're appreciating the Bible, reading the Bible with the founding fathers in this 250th anniversary of the United States of America. Can you believe it? It seems like last year, just last year, it was the 249th anniversary. So it's man, it's going fast. Time is flying. Well, thanks for joining me on the Republican Professor podcast. I've been your host, Dr. Lucas J. Mather. We'll see you next time. God bless you guys. Take care.